What, as I said, I'll cover it in three parts. First is why we are talking about this, right? And then we will talk about what, and then major portion we will cover on how. Now, this whole thing about structuring industry knowledge for software development, I have spent more than 3 decades in IT. I have handled different kind of engagements, different kind of client, different kind of industries. So one thing which has come out very clearly is that when you know the industry better, it becomes much easier for you to handle things, right? So with that in mind, this particular session is there. Of course, the background of this session is there's a book which is written by Mr. Manoj Kumar Lal, and he has done a beautiful job in terms of promoting how to build the industry knowledge. So I will cover most of what you will see here will get covered, in this session from those books. Okay, so roughly about 45 minutes, and then we will have last 10-15 minutes for question answer. So let's get started. So as I said, the first thing is why we want to have a structured industry knowledge. Now, if you look at any industry for that matter, the business knowledge is very, very important, right? Any industry. But if we are talking about, let's say, IT industry, it becomes even more important, okay? Because in IT industry, we are catering to other industries. Sometime our client could be a healthcare client, it could be a aviation client, it could be a bank, it could be insurance, it could be oil and gas, all kind of industries are there. Now, any software which is built, the software, the subject matter of the software, जो knowledge होता है, दिल जो होता है उस software का, that's the functionality, right? The functions which we are talking about. And any requirement which a customer gives, or any test criteria which customer uses for accepting those systems, those are all based on the functionality. So if we don't understand the business context, many times we lose the purpose for which the software is being done. But the challenge which we are facing today is that, first, I mean, there are plenty of information. There's no dearth of information as such. कमी नहीं है, बहुत है, knowledge बहुत scattered है. But if you want to find something, and for that particular moment, if you are not able to find that information, that becomes a challenge, right? Plus, there's so many different industries. So if you are from IT, if you have to understand different industries, that also becomes a challenge. Now, when we say business knowledge, we also need to understand how this business knowledge is structured. So there are 4 forms of business knowledge, or you can say hierarchy. सबसे ऊपर में, on the top comes the industry knowledge, right? Any industry, let's say bank, if we are talking about, then banking is one industry. So the knowledge of how a bank works will be called a business knowledge for that particular industry. When that knowledge is adopted and instantiated by a particular enterprise, for example, let's say SBI. Now, SBI is a bank. So when SBI adopts those knowledge from a banking industry and customizes it for its own use, the knowledge of SBI's business processes and all of that is called the enterprise knowledge. That's also business knowledge, but it's very specific to that particular enterprise. And then within the enterprise, when you do a project, let's say if you want to do something, you want to modify something, you want to add a new business product or service, then for that, if you create a project, if you build a system, then that is called the project knowledge. And finally, what we call is the application knowledge. That's where most of the people really communicate or use, like apps. Nowadays we have a lot of apps for everything, right? So that's called the application knowledge. So let's take it one at a time. For example, if we take retail banking as an example, so the knowledge that saving account is a interest bearing account, right? This is a industry knowledge for bank. Any bank you go, India में हो, बाहर में हो, बिहार में हो, कर्नाटका में हो, Delhi में हो, in any other countries also, if there is a saving account, the account has to have an interest, which is the person who has the account owner person gets it. Now, when you instantiate it, for example, SBI might say, I will give a 3% interest on the saving account. Now, that becomes an instantiation. So, if SBI is giving 3%, maybe other bank could be giving any other percent, maybe 2.5% or 3.5%. Maybe ICICI will decide I will give 3.5%. Somebody else will decide a different percent. So that becomes a enterprise knowledge. So saving account is a interest bearing account. That's a industry knowledge. But what, how much of that interest, that is industry enterprise knowledge of that particular enterprise. Now let's assume the same bank is taking it further. They want to create a new class of offering, SBI for example here, for senior citizens. And they decide that for senior citizens, we will give them 0.25% more. So now they will have to make changes in their current systems, right? So what they will do is they will go and make the changes in the logic of the software. The data will be modified, the data set will be changed, right? Some conditions would be put in, and a lot of testing will have to be done. So that's the project knowledge, which is to create a new entity which will have a 0.25% more for senior citizen, sorry, a new product, and that product will be made into an app, or maybe in the app there could be an option that if you are a senior citizen, then you have to choose, and based on that it will behave in a particular way. So that becomes a app knowledge. And finally, once the app is all done, this information will be put back into the enterprise system, because now, as far as SBI is concerned, they will have saving account as a two different kind of saving account. One is a regular saving account, one is for a senior citizen. So depending on what it is, they will have a different interest rate. So this is just an example of how we see industry knowledge to enterprise knowledge to project to app knowledge, and of course it goes back and gets updated into the enterprise knowledge. Now, why we need to understand this, I will put it in two perspectives. One is, if we are talking about graduate students who are coming out of the college and getting into a working professions and all that, for them it's always advantageous that if you know at least one or two industry, because that will create a differentiator on your resume. Everybody will talk about, I know Python, I know R, I know, Java, .NET, Angular. All these are technical skills. But if somebody in his or her resume mentions that I know the functioning of banking, or I know how the insurance sector works, right? Typically, that will give a little edge, because that creates a differentiator, right? So knowing, how the industry works definitely helps. Once you get into the profession, then knowing enterprise knowledge and project knowledge becomes important, because now you will have to work on those businesses. You have to maintain those systems, you have to make changes and all of that, right? So I would say, as a graduate student, you should know about the industry. Once you get into the profession, you need to enhance your knowledge about that particular enterprise's business knowledge, and of course the project knowledge which it comes. So if you look at in summary, when we have a good knowledge of industry and enterprise together, you have a functional knowledge. You understand the functionality of that particular entity, right? So that helps you to understand the business context. And when you have that, that translates into the project knowledge, because you can understand the requirement better, you can converse with the customer better, and you can do a software development in a better way. So ओवरऑल अगर हमको कहना होगा तो अगर हम ये नॉलेज गैदर करते हैं, वी बिल्ड दिस नॉलेज, इंडस्ट्री नॉलेज, तो हमारे लिए ये हमेशा वो एक एडवांटेज रहेगा, राइट? व्हेन यू आर इन अ job also, or if you're searching for the job also, then also it will create a differentiator, right? So that's at a high level. And of course, IT guys need to know industry of more than the business of more than one industry, because they will cater to different industry over the time. So given that context of why, we will talk about what this KDD education had done in this space. Okay, so the important thing is that how we structure this knowledge and how we digitize this knowledge. Knowledge is there, it is available, but maybe it is not available in a very structured way. In fact, there are a lot of books, a lot of videos, a lot of reports, a lot of places you will have it. The problem is when you want to find a particular information, you don't know where to go. So you keep searching. I mean, nowadays people use AI for a lot of questions, right? You can ask a question, but if you don't ask the right question, you may not get the right answer. Or maybe if you're asking a good question, but the source from which it is retrieving is not the right source, then again you may not get the right answer, right? So, that is the dilemma, or that is the challenge which we see today. What KDD has done is it has converted the knowledge in a structured way, and as well as it has digitized that knowledge. When I say digitize, that means it is available in a simpler form where you can access it easily. You don't have to read so many books, so many places, and all of that. It is still a work in progress in a tool which they are doing, but that's the concept they are looking at. And they have broken it down to the level where the knowledge is at an atomic piece of the knowledge. That means it is at a lowest level possible. So, if you have to find something at a very, very transactional level, even that knowledge can be captured. Or if you aggregate all of them, you can keep going up, right? You can build the whole knowledge of the industry or particular enterprise. So, this is what they have done. Now, if I look at KDD per se, KDD is a combination of a framework and a methodology. KDD on its own is a combination of these two, and the framework is converting the knowledge which is available in a structured and digitized way, and then AKM, which is the methodology, is taking it forward to use it in a way where it can be very beneficial for the project development, maintenance, all of that. And there are a lot of advantages of it, right? I mean, it will reduce the cost, the reuse increases, the quality improves, the collaboration improves, because you have access to a lot of these things. And there's assessment, their own guess, KDD, they're expecting that most of this benefit can come if you know the industry, because that gives you a head start, right? You understand the industry better, so you know better. And once you know the enterprise also, that particular company, again through this same structured and digitized way, that will help. And finally, of course, if you know the project, you are using it in the project, it becomes very good. Just an overview of this KDD book. There are actually two books. Both are available on Amazon. So if anybody is interested, they can still take it and read it in more detail. This has been published. There have been conferences where it has been presented. And in fact, some colleges, some institutes have even adopted it for their curriculum. So this is what KDD has done. Okay. Uh, I will now move on the how part. How this is done. Now that how part is done in two ways. One is for the framework, That is the domain knowledge framework. So we'll cover that first, and then we'll get into how that structure is used in atomic knowledge model or AKM. Okay, so when we want to build a knowledge, industry knowledge, right, we need to acquire it. Okay, the industry knowledge is in two levels. One, what we call it a contextual knowledge, right? Contextual is that if you understand it, it will give you context about that particular industry. And this is relatively static. Okay, when I say relatively, what I mean is it doesn't change every year. 5 साल 6 साल में 2% 1% इधर उधर कोई चीज चेंज हो सकता है. It doesn't change very often, right? For example, introduction, what this industry is about, how the industry evolved, what are the main features of that industry, like that. Some of these stuff, regulatory, the trends, the glossaries, each industry will have certain glossaries, certain terms which they use, right? अगर हम बोल रहे हैं सेविंग अकाउंट, इसका एक मतलब है. If we are saying interest rate, इसका एक मतलब है. So each industry has some glossary. These don't change very often. But when we come to the core business knowledge, this is a knowledge where we interact or which we use as a consumer. अगर हमें कोई बैंक में अकाउंट खोलना है, तो we go through their app, right? Savings account app या बैंक में जाके काम करें. So that knowledge becomes a core business knowledge. This is relatively dynamic. ये चेंज होते रहता है. सिस्टम हैज टू बी इम्प्रूव्ड अपॉन. कुछ चेंजेस आएंगे, कुछ नए फीचर्स आएंगे, कुछ रेगुलेशन की वजह से चेंजेस होंगे. ऑल दिस कीप्स हैपनिंग, राइट? So this, what we call it, inherent knowledge, and this comprises of 3 or 4 key things. One is product, one is process, and third is, which is very very important, what we call it a knowledge nugget. Knowledge nugget is basically a collection of different kind of knowledges which makes up. It could be the rules, definition, communication, data, report, all sort of things. So when we want to understand the industry, we need to understand both contextual as well as inherent. But the advantage is the contextual, once you understand, it doesn't change very often. But inherent, because it keeps changing, so you have to keep yourself up to date. Maybe every few quarters you have to refresh yourself. Now, this is industry knowledge. But if you want to understand the enterprise, then what enterprise does is enterprise will adopt and instantiate, right? They will take the same knowledge and they will customize it for their own purpose. So if you have to understand enterprise, you build the basic concept from industry and then you look at how they have implemented it in their own enterprise, right? So that way you can understand that particular enterprise better. What we'll do is we will focus more on core business knowledge, but I'll just give you a glimpse of what the contextual knowledge could be, right? Now here I've taken an example for introduction. This is the introduction box and all these are other boxes. So for example, if we are talking about banking, so all this definition that banking industry primarily deposit cash, provides loan, performs other financial transactions. All of this is kind of helping you understand what the bank is all about, right? All of this retail banks, most of the banks seen in the street meet individuals and families saving and loan needs. Those are called retail bank. So like that, this is kind of a definition or understanding, right? And it doesn't change, right? Even 20 years, 50 years later, retail bank will be known by this. So it doesn't change that much. We'll focus more on the the core business knowledge, which is the inherent knowledge. Now, DKF creates a core structure through which it uses or it structures this knowledge. So you will delve into that. In this structure, DKF first identifies all the products. right, uniquely identifies all the product. And what are these products? For example, banking, the saving account is a product. In insurance, it could be term insurance. Automobile, it could be car. Like that, different industry, it could be different product. Similarly, there are processes. Now, processes are the life cycle activity which happens on the product. And typically, the launch, administration, and withdrawal, these are the three key processes, which every industry will have. So it is depicted this way, and the cross sections of these two, right? This product and process. That's what we call it knowledge nodes. Now we call it knowledge node because this kind of uh, you can see it as a container, kind of a box, जहाँ की सारा knowledge जो जो हम लोग daily use में use करते हैं, those knowledge is retained in this place. So every knowledge node will have knowledge about product and processes. And what are these knowledges? We call that knowledge nuggets. Right? Here is an example. Like for example, the minimum age to take a term insurance policy is 16 years. Right? That is kind of a business rule. Right? So that is a knowledge nugget. Similarly, for updating the name, the documentary evidence is a must. That's again a rule. So this kind of micro level information, atomic piece of knowledge comprises of a knowledge nuggets, and each nuggets is a collection of each node is a collection of multiple knowledge nuggets at that. Okay, so this is how the DKF structures it. Not just captures this information at one level, but you can drill down, right? So for example, let's say in this picture you will see this is a level 1. Now here this particular node is drilled down to the next level. What it means is at this level, whatever product is there, when you go to the next level, you have a sub product, right? So if you have a product P1 here, at the next level it could be P1.1, P1.2, P1.3, like that. Similarly, processes is also split into sub processes, right? So that is next level, and then you can drill down to further level, right? So that way you can keep going down, and DKF captures all of this knowledge at all levels. It builds that tree structure so that you can understand better. First two levels, we call it a generic knowledge because this will give you understanding of that particular enterprise or industry. And level 3 and 4 typically becomes a detailed knowledge. You can even have fifth level, but typically it will go to 4 to 5 level at most. Detailed knowledge level, you will be able to understand, you will be able to interact more with it. Okay, I will just give you one example of through which you can understand it a little better. Again, from banking. So for example, if you look at any banking industry, there are three key products: corporate banking, retail banking, and investment banking. That's the top level products, right? Some bank can have more than one of these products, right? Retail banking and investment banking, both could be there, or retail banking, corporate banking, both could be there. But some can be just a retail banking. That's also possible, right? So this is your level 1 process, level 1 uh, structure of this core business knowledge. And three core processes are launch, administration, and withdrawal. Now this is level 1. Here you see this node 1, which is at retail banking and administration. So when I drill it down, I go to level 2, where I get two sub products: deposit account and advance account. So these are sub product of retail banking, right? So the product is broken down to sub product, right? Similarly, administration is broken down to product administration, account administration, right? Again, we can drill down let's say we are drilling down from node 2 of this to next level. Now this deposit account is broken down into saving account, fixed deposit account, and recurring deposit account, right? You will see these are the terms which we are more familiar with, right? When we go to level 3, we are more familiar with, yeah, saving account, yes, we all know. Fixed deposit, we all know, right? यहाँ पे transactions होता है, we get involved at this level as a consumer. Similarly, the process is broken down into account opening, account alteration, customer alteration, account closure. Again, we are more familiar with it, right? So level 3 and level 4 is where the detail level information is captured. Now, if we drill down further, level 4, that's a saving account, then it can be broken down into regular saving account, student account, foreign national account, non-resident account, like that, could be there. And account opening can be broken down into form submission, KYC compliance, nomination process, account opening and confirmation, right? Those kind of processes. So as you can see, this is how the whole structure is kind of broken down. Now, DKF captures all this information in this structural form. So if you want to find out about foreign national account, for example, you know where to go. You can get more detail on that. And at this level, you see this image. This is for the knowledge nugget. This could be at any level, but for simplicity, we have shown it here. And some of the knowledge nugget here could be, because this one is talking about regular saving account and KYC process on that particular node. So the knowledge nugget will be related to that. So it says proof of identity and address must meet the KYC requirement. Like that, it is there, right? So this is how it structures. Now, to understand the magnitude, let's see how big or small it could be. So if I have to understand the industry knowledge of retail banking, right? I'm not talking about banking. I'm talking only about retail banking. So that is this particular, right? In this, there are 3 nodes. Level 1, there are 3 nodes, corresponding to 3 different processes at that level. When we go to the next level, this has become 4 nodes. So 3 into 4, assuming all other nodes at level 1 also, breaks down at the same composition of products and processes. It could be more also, it could be less also, but for simplicity, let's assume that it is broken to next level 1, 4 nodes. Further down, it's 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 into 4, 12. So next level is 12 nodes, and level 4 is 16. 4 product, 4 processes. So effectively, if you want to understand the retail banking, that is this particular one, you'll have to drill down to all the lower level, which will be roughly about 2300 nodes, right? And each node is a collection of all the knowledges, right? So if I assume that on average each node will have 25 knowledge nuggets, it's a very conservative number, because when you go down, the information is very much there. All sort of informations are there, lot of rules, lot of guidance and all that. At a higher level, it will more of a definition and all, but as you go down, it will become more transaction oriented knowledge. But for simplicity, if we say average is 25 per node, we are talking about 57,600 knowledge nuggets, right? So if you want to understand retail banking, and if this structure kind of sticks together, you need to understand 57,600 knowledge nuggets. Now that's massive, right? In actual practice, it may be hundreds of thousands or even more. But the beauty is, if you want to understand something at a high level, right, you need to only look at level 1 and level 2, which is only about 12 knowledge nuggets. And at that level, if we are talking about 25 each, 25 into 12 is only about 300, right? So by knowing those 300, you have a basic understanding of the banking, right? And then of course you can go down as you go further down. So it helps in terms of that, right? Now I have taken example of banking, but the same thing is done in other industries also. You can use the same structure for insurance, for oil and gas, for retail, aviation, any industry you talk about it, it can be used the same structure. But it is massive if you look at in terms of knowledge nuggets. Like there, I've just given example. Here, I've given a sample of knowledge nugget at level 4, the lowest level, right? This was the picture, if you remember, the last level. I'm looking at this particular node, which is regular saving account and KYC, right? I've given some 10 sample knowledge nuggets. Most of it are more like a definitions. Some of them could be even a rule, right? But most of it is basic kind of a information. But to know it, to know the banking to that level, you need to understand it, right? In actual practice, it will be much more. Now, this knowledge nugget, this is the key part of the whole thing, right? So there are certain attributes of this knowledge nugget. It's not just one line, right? So it will have an ID, it has a name, description. Most important thing is the type. What kind of a knowledge nugget it is. It could be a business rule, it could be a data, communication, it can lead to certain report, communication. There could be so many varieties, right? Definition is very commonly used at a higher level, right? So each of these knowledge nugget has to have all of this. This is just one example of that, right? So ID could be something like this. This basically explains which node we are talking about. You can have a own naming convention, but this is how it is captured. Requirement name is there, description is there, what type it is. It is a business rule, right? This particular one. Channel, it is applicable both online, offline, geography, like that. Now, what Kid, DKF has done is it has used knowledge graph. Knowledge graph, many of you will be familiar. Knowledge graph technique to digitize this knowledge. You saw the structure. Now, DKF has used knowledge graph to digitize it. Right? A knowledge graph, just to help you understand, knowledge graph basically has a entity and a relationship, right? So basically, it is connected. Here, like dog is an animal, is a living thing, right? Cow is an animal, is a living thing. Cow eats herbs, is a plant, is a living thing. Like that, it is a technique of how to capture that knowledge. KDD or DKF has used the same thing for capturing knowledge nugget. The only difference is here we are talking about entity, here we are talking about a knowledge nugget. And knowledge nugget has two parts. One is knowledge nugget business, which is used as KNB, that is the nomenclature we are using, and knowledge nuggets IT or KNI that we normally use it. And it is so powerful that you can even use this structure for even using some of the common tools of AI. So this is how DKF kind of depicts the structural knowledge, the the industry knowledge in the structure, as well as digitizes that. Okay, now if you I have to summarize that, then this is how you have to look at. It is kind of breaking it down the structure from level 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and the fourth level example of the knowledge nugget, which is digitized in this format. Okay, now I will take you to the portion which is how to use this knowledge for project development. Right, so far we have seen how the knowledge is structured, how it is digitized, so it becomes easy for anyone to get to know about the industry or the enterprise in a better way, faster way, search information and all that. Now we will see how AKM, which is the other part of KDD, can use this structured knowledge and digitized knowledge for actual project development. So what AKM does is it extends the DKF for software development. What I mean here is If you look at this picture, on the top portion, you see this structured business knowledge, right? Which is what we have seen there. And the same thing is digitized, as you can see here, right? On the top portion is the digital relation. It also does the same thing for the IT side, because while the business is talking about it, it also captures the information on the IT side in the same way. For example, you have a lowest level, you will have transactions, right? For example, if you are withdrawing money from a bank, from your saving account, that's a transaction, right? There could be multiple component above that, right? Above that could be application, like your account opening application or saving account app. Those could be application, and system could be your banking system, right? So it depicts that information also, and there's a structure, digitized structure for IT side as well, and it connects each level. So transaction is connected to the lowest level of the business, component is connected to the next level, so like that it kind of connects. So once it is connected, it becomes very easy for any project changes to happen. You can pick the right information, what is getting modified, what needs to be changed, what needs to be, something may need to be added and all that, right? So we will see how that is done. So what AKM does, it looks at three key parts of software development lifecycle. One is project knowledge. Now, in this case, when we say project knowledge, we are talking more about reusing the digitized knowledge which DKF has created. Okay, so requirement analysis, solution design, application design, for all of this, how we can reuse the digitized knowledge. So that's what it does. Using that, it drives for execution, where you build, test, deploy, maintain all this activity which you do. And finally, also for managing, right? Once you have all this knowledge, how you can help manage the project better in terms of task management, quality management, risk management, configuration management, all kind of management you can do using that. So I'll take you through a simple example of that, how AKM leverages this digitized knowledge nuggets. So let's take a scenario here. This is a enterprise knowledge. This whole section which you see, this is enterprise knowledge. It could be any bank, let's say SBI, right? So here you have all these products, all these are processes. These are the nodes on which you have multiple knowledge nuggets, and all these green circles which you see, you consider it to be a application, IT applications, right? Now this is the enterprise knowledge. Let's assume the the enterprise wants to create a new project. They have identified some requirement, like that senior citizen, right? So what is needed is, first you need to ring fence that portion, that out of enterprise knowledge, this particular area is where I see it changing, right? So it is related to a particular product and a set of processes. So these two nodes we are talking about, this project is limited to this node and this node. So anything which is happening will be limited to only these two nodes, right? So first you ring fence, you identify the boundary. Then you identify the impacted knowledge nuggets, the business side, right? You have the whole knowledge there, right? Knowledge nuggets. So from there you identify, and let's say somebody identified that these are the knowledge nuggets, KNB07, KNB05, like that. Now some of this may need to be modified, some of these may need to be added, right? Maybe something is not there already, right? Some new feature you are talking about, some scenarios, regulatory scenario which you need to incorporate, so it has to be added. Some may even have to be deleted, that may not be valid. So do this. This is like your requirement analysis, what you do here. You don't create a requirement specifications, you just identify whatever your requirement is. Based on that, it will give you, these are the knowledge nuggets which are impacted, right, based on what it contains. Then you get into a solution design, where you build relationship between all of these nuggets. Now, when I say build, some cases there will already be established relationship because they already exist. But because of the changes which you are making, there may be a need to change relationship. Maybe some connection, new connection has to be made. Or some cases where there's a new knowledge nugget getting added, you may have to establish a new relation, right? So that's what it's done in the solution design. You are not using any document. You're just clicking. You are getting the whole retail, and from this structured way, you are able to do that. Once you have done that, you move to mapping this knowledge to the IT side, right? On the business side, you have already built that knowledge. These are the knowledge nuggets which is to be added, modified, relationship. You connect them with knowledge nuggets on the IT side, right? So that's your application design. Now, again, you will have some application nuggets already there. Some are missing. So you'll have to add some new relation has to be built. So, that you'll have to do. And then finally, you build the test scenarios. What will you test? Now, for the testing, you need to look at all your business nuggets, which is kind of a rule or guideline, right? For example, if there's some knowledge nugget which is more of a definition, right? You don't need to test for the definition, right? That's just for information. But if there's a rule or guideline, then you have to test that. So this will also help you to understand which knowledge nugget is for creating those business test scenarios, right? Again, using this, you can pull out that information and test can be created. Now to do so, this is how you do the project knowledge. Now you take that for project execution. You we call it ABCD mechanism. Here, basically, what we have done is we have understood what are the inventory which is modified or created, right? Both on the business side as well as on IT side. So that you build, right? You code, you make the change in the logic, whatever, right? Also the relationship between them. So that is what we call it B, right? So you also build that, whatever conditions are there as part of it. It will also automatically throw you some errors, right? If something is not consistent. For example, if there's a knowledge nugget in IT which is not connected to any business, right? It will throw it as an error. It said you don't need it, right? Or maybe you have missed out something. So like that, it will automatically prompt you that something is inconsistent. You can correct it. And finally, it also gives you an option to manually review it. I mean, end of the day, if the system has not got all the information correctly captured, then manually you can identify, oh, something is missing out. Okay. So you can say, okay, let me add a new entity. And when you add, you have to build the relationship of that. So using this ABCD mechanism, you can do the execution part, right? Where you can do the coding, testing, deployment, all of that. Even in maintenance, you can use this information, right? So A plus B, that's your digital project knowledge. As I said, you'll capture it. And C and D is together is your quality assurance because it will take care of the reviews. If something is missed out, something is not correct, you can handle it, right? And once you have done this project, the project is over. What you do is now you have taken all that detail and you push it back to the enterprise knowledge, right? It goes in there. So as you can see here, the number of applications has gone up in this ring fest area because whatever you have built, all those logic, all those knowledge, you will push it back into the system. So system is now up to date, right? Automatically, once the project is over, it can go in there. So that's how you can complete the execution. And finally, for project management, it is called RRR method for project management. R is for reuse. Throughout, we are talking about reuse, review, and rectify, right? So when you say A and B, that is primarily for reuse. You are pulling out information from the systems, all the structured information, digitized information. You are pulling it out, right? C and D is for review and rectify. How you review it automatically or manually, both ways. And what the finding is coming out, you can rectify it. Now, same thing can be used for all the task management, quality management, risk management, configuration management. It gives you a way to handle all of that almost seamlessly, right? As I said, the tool is still in the process of being made, but as per the concept, this is how it is done, right? Today, the tool is already there for DKF part. The whole knowledge can be structured, can be broken down into a digitized form. Using that for whole project development, this concept is there. The tool is still catching up with this concept. I'm sure in few minutes time it will be ready where it can complete that aspect also. So that's at an overall level what it is. I'll just capture it, conclude the whole session. First, the knowledge is at 4 levels: industry level, enterprise level, project level, and application level, right? Industry knowledge, that is good for graduates, right? If you want to create a differentiator, having few industry knowledge in your resume will definitely stand out from the crowd. Enterprise knowledge and project knowledge when you become a professional, once you start using it as you go in the system. KDD, that's a combination of DKF and AKM, right? Domain knowledge framework and atomic knowledge model. The whole knowledge of industry is captured in 2 ways: contextual and inherent knowledge, right? As I said, contextual is relatively static, inherent knowledge, which is the core business knowledge, is relatively dynamic. 4 key things: product, processes, knowledge nodes, and knowledge nuggets, right? Knowledge node is like a container or a box in which all the knowledges of that particular product and process at that particular node is captured, right? So all the knowledge nuggets. Level 1 and 2 will give you a generic knowledge of the industry. Go to level 3 and 4. This is a detailed knowledge where most of the consumer, most of the people, common man like us, we interact at that level. Okay. Knowledge graph, that's the technique which is used for converting the structure into a digitized form. Okay. Digitized form, the knowledge nuggets are kept in 2 groups: knowledge nugget business, KNB, and knowledge nugget IT, right? Then there's a relation between KNB and KNIs. I mean, they are very closely connected, and that helps in terms of the whole project development software lifecycle. You can identify the impacted KNBs, and once you have identified through that relationship, you can identify the impacted KNIs also, and eventually you can use that for project knowledge, execution, and management, right? So this is about this whole thing, how the whole structure, industry knowledge is structured, digitized, and then take that structure from DKF into AKM, which helps in terms of converting it into a project execution knowledge and all of that, right? So that's all from my side. Thank you all. I think it has been a one way, but now I'll open it for any questions. If you have, I will be happy to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Such kind of information. If anyone have some dots, you can put on in comment. Okay,
Mhm.
sir. Many students having some dot. Please check once comment box.
Okay, so I see one question here. It will be useful for all to know. There was a concept of case tool, for example, rational, where to the business process was documented, eventually able to generate code and even test, ensuring integrity of testing. How does KTT tool do? Excellent question. Anil, thanks a lot. Very good question. Yes, rational when it came, it was, I would say, that point of time, it was very powerful in terms of what it wanted to do. However, there's a difference in terms of what rational was doing and what KDD is doing. So, KDD, what KDD is trying to do is it's not for one particular industry, it is creating a framework using that product and process and the whole structure through which any industry can be depicted, right? It's not forcing you to use it in a particular way. It is giving you a framework. Using that, you can convert the whole knowledge, right? So there it differs. And secondly, it's digitizes it so that you can easily retrieve it. Now it doesn't get into the code, automatically code generations and all that, right? It stays at that level, right? Builds the knowledge, makes you that available. You can use it when you are doing a project. You can pull out those information, and from that you can build that knowledge. So there it kind of differs. I hope I answer your question.
One more question from Sumilal.
Sumilal, okay.
Okay, you can see
All
also.
programming are used in the industry. Popular ones such as insurance, banking, retail are languages like Java. Okay, I think this is more like clarification, looks like. So if I understand, this is kind of relating to the kind of a knowledge which we are talking about, right? So there are two kind of knowledges. You can have a technical knowledge, which is like Java, Python, .NET, and all that. Other is like domain knowledge, which could be a banking, insurance, those industry. I think this particular one is focused more on industry. Language you can use any for coding, programming, all of that. I'm not sure what was the context, but I guess that is what it was. Thanks, Sumi, anyway, for highlighting that difference.
One more question from Dishu Kumar. Sir, which programming languages does industry requires?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh gosh, yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, the way IT is moving every day. Um, I mean, these days people are talking about Python. Everybody will talk about Python, right? Angular, React, all those things are there. When I started my career, that was in 1990. We were the mainframe, COBOL, JCL, and all of that, right? We have seen it changing. That time it used to change every decade. 10 साल में वो चेंज हो गए मेन फ्रेम से Oracle forms वो सारा आया object oriented. Another 10 years it took for Java and .NET to kind of mature. Now it is changing so fast. It's really very, very difficult to pinpoint one particular language or one particular tool. But I would say, I mean, AI, everybody is talking about anything which is related to business analytics space, cloud, mobility, all those standard stuff are there. But if you ask me to pinpoint any one particular language, I think it will be really difficult for me. I would say Python, React, all those stuff. Um, it is doing a lot of good stuff these days.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I think all dot was clear. No any dot here.
Great, thank you all. I really enjoyed. Of course, it was one way to a great extent. But if there's still any doubt, you can reach out, and I'll request the KDD team to help answer those things. Or you can even write to me through Skill Darpan, and I will be happy to clarify those doubts. So thanks you once again, the Skill Darpan team. I think you are doing a great job, and keep it going, helping out people. Thank you.
Okay, most welcome, sir. Okay, we'll end this session.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay, thank you all of you.